Do you know what this is? Yes, it's a rain stick, a rainmaker. This one comes from Mexico, part of the Mayan Indian cultural tradition. And it's not difficult for us if we have been in any part of the world where there are large stretches of open land, dried, baked hard by the sun, and the grasses all standing quiet, to realize how important it is to the people to hear the first sounds of the wind coming that is bringing rain. And that in this culture, in that particular culture, the sound of the wind first moving through the dry, high grasses gave the sound of chark, chark. And chark became the name of the god who brings the rain. Our need to have control over the weather, because the weather has a great deal of control over our lives in society. Now, of course, we don't use rain sticks. We don't even use much technology to change the weather. We have an appreciation that mostly we cannot change the weather, or so we thought. So we haven't used technology, or we've given up using rain sticks or the more sophisticated equivalents. We've even probably given up calling on God to do it for us. Humanity had recognized that the climate changes were uncontrollable. But now, in our contemporary situation, we have the fear that in actual fact we can influence changes in our climate. Climate change, a phrase that we hear over and over again. And we're told that the melting ice in the Antarctic, the Arctic, is going to affect the whole coastline of California. People will have to move their houses. Our use of cars and vehicles that produce this greenhouse gas, pollution of the atmosphere, change of oxygen in the sea, marine life dying. Over and over again, it's pointed out that our ways of living together in society are making destructive changes in the environment and therefore in our climate. And we're very well aware of the fact that climate change has become a political issue. But we must have discussed this among ourselves frequently. And this moment, then, we're going to suggest that we look at climate change from a different angle. Just how important is the weather and the changes in the weather to my life, where I live and how I live now? Even though my food normally comes wrapped up in plastic from the local supermarket, it wouldn't be there at all if we didn't have the correct climate for the plants to grow and ripen and produce food. We are affected by heat and cold. We're also affected in our physical health by conditions that increase diseases, cholera, for example, various epidemics. Yes, in many ways, when we reflect on them for a moment, the day's climate affects my ability to live well, healthily on this planet, or even to survive at all. But the weather also affects our emotional moods, our psychological life, and also like psychological needs. If we have the weather we want relaxes our stress. Relaxation, a change into a positive attitude to daily life. And you probably find yourself humming something with a joy that because today is the right sort of weather for what I want to do. Blue skies smiling at me, nothing but blue skies do I see. Grey skies, all of them gone, and so on. Singing as I go down the stairs or take a shower. Yes, the emotional mood, very much affected by the climate, by the weather being the weather I want today for what I want to do. In fact, the reliance on weather to give me the right sort of atmosphere for what I want to do quite often turns people back to the hope that there is a God who can do it for them. Even think of all the young brides who try and get everybody to pray that the weather will be fine on their wedding day, and so on. But it is unwise to rely on the weather to put us in a good mood, to put us into a psychological mood which is positive, hopeful. We have to make deliberate decisions to seek the positive news in our human family and how we are relating worldwide. I've got one example here. This was produced for the change in the year between 2017 and 2018, and it is a list of 99 positive things that humanity was doing to counterbalance all the negativity. It's a fascinating thing. I hope you get the chance of looking at it if you missed it. Let's choose a few at random. The first one was that now the World Health Organization had found a new vaccine that was both cheap and effective, and it was enough to end cholera completely on this planet. Cholera being one of humanity's greatest mass killers. You know? Another one to do with health, I leapt out at me. Perhaps most of you might have missed it, but this was a question of leprosy. I went to live in India for many years, and I went in 1972, I think, to live there permanently. We lived up in the north of India by the river Ganges, in a very holy city, a pilgrimage place. We lived down by the river, but we had to go up the hill to get to a road. And in between us and the road, there was a leper colony, which simply meant that this was a place where a large number of men and women, many of them perhaps still young, though they didn't look it, gathered together because at the pilgrimage seasons, the festival seasons, people came in vast numbers and would throw food and clothes and things to the lepers. Leprosy still is unfortunately one of our most horrifying diseases. It eats away at the body, so the people we saw had only stumps for hands and stumps for feet, couldn't walk, couldn't carry, left by the side of the road. Yes, people did do something about it. The monks in the nearby ashram eventually built them little brick houses so that they could have their own small place to live, were never just out of doors all the time, and eventually a little clinic there for some help and hope, because the man who worked there had himself had leprosy and had been cured. Now the amazing thing is that since 1985, leprosy has dropped in the world by 97%. We found how to cure it. And by 2020, it will have gone. And you may think back to the scriptures, the Old Testament and the New Testament, and the fear of leprosy. So that's something else positive that's gone. Let's have a look at it. Oh yes, there's something here. The Netherlands has seen a great fall in the crime, the amount of crime that is committed in the country. So they have empty prisons. And so they are refurnishing them as homes, apartments for migrants. Now that's a very positive and happy outcome, that we have those buildings because we no longer have prisoners. If you're interested in animal welfare, the last one of the 99, the Indian government officially banned the use of wild animals in circus performances. 1 month later, the Italian parliament did the same. And last year, 40 nations have continued this, banning the use of wild animals for art entertainment, which of course means cruelty as well. Oh, there are all sorts of things here that are interesting. The abortion rates falling and so on. Cancer is another disease that is now getting much more effective treatment, and so on. So, 99, and they're not the only ones, positive outcomes of our caring for each other, caring for the planet, and caring for the climate, which can very often controls the way we can live, our housing, our food, our water supply, and so on. So we can say science, the science of meteorology, and constant research has taught us a great deal since we last used the rain sticks, or read the skies, or tasted the wind. Or has it? If our ways of living together as a society are seriously endangering our relationship with the climate, we must re-establish that vital relationship, and quickly. It's a relationship with us as individuals, both for our physical well-being, in fact for our very existence. We can move away from the political arguments and discussions and look at this. A fundamental relationship is threatened, and what am I doing about it? Well, one of the ways I've just mentioned. We can recover and develop a positive emotional attitude to that relationship and to each other in society, living harmoniously together, living harmoniously with all the resources of this magnificent planet Earth. I hope we never have to bring back the rain stick, or even rely more on technology than our own capacity to decide. So what is our question to go? Ask yourself, when I heard or read the weather forecast this morning, how did I react or respond? Was it just, well, it suited me or it didn't suit me, or complained that that wasn't the forecast they gave us yesterday, and so on? Positively, negatively, ignored it? Also, if our news headlines of this morning told us of some major natural changes, violent storms, earthquakes, flooding, drought, what were my emotional responses? Just indifference, unless they affected the lives of some people I knew personally, or were likely to come into my area, forest fires or mudslides, or whatever. Do I ever reflect on the how or the why of those, what we call natural disasters? Even the use of the term disaster gives a sense that if we knew how, we could prevent them happening. Just for a little while, take a little more interest in today's weather forecast, today's news, and look at my responses. What is it telling me about my relationship with the climate and its effects on my life? Now, a question to go for the month. A reminder why we have added the practice of the month during this series. The purpose is for those of you who have not been established in any particular spiritual practice, or even those of you who have and might have given it up, or even those who are still in some serious daily, weekly, monthly spiritual practice, to look at it again. We need to find a practice that is simple, doesn't need a lot of equipment, time, or particular places. It has to be effective. In other words, it fits into my daily lifestyle easily. It isn't requiring me to take a whole day of meditation or such. Simple, effective, fitting simply, easily into my lifestyle. It's meant to keep me awake, that I'm on an inner journey, a journey to the center of the self, staying awake to that. Now, the first month in this series, we chose to try and break any automatic habits we had. We talked a lot about automation and what it was doing to our human family, and so we chose one simple automatic reaction that we knew we had every day, reaching for the cup of coffee or the cigarette or the newspaper, it doesn't matter what, and stopping before we did it. And then doing it with greater awareness. Now, if you tried that for the month, you might find, my goodness, there are many things I do automatically, unthinkingly, every day. So, if that's true, well then find a different automatic reaction for this month. Don't give it up. Carry on doing it. The second month, we took the phrase, take a pause for breath, very seriously. We are in a society that is extremely agitated and hurried, and most of us have agitated minds without really realizing the negative effect this is having on our whole way of living. So, to pause for breath. Choose a time to do it. When I stop the car in the evening before I get out and go into the house, or when I open the computer first thing in the morning, or before I turn the light out before I go to sleep, whatever. Choose the time that fits for you and your way of life. And just stop and take 5 deep breaths. It does a great deal to still the agitation of the mind and the whole person. Now, both of these practices are useful, but they need to be continued. If one of them you found more helpful, try practicing that a little more with more attention. Attention. This is, I'm going to say, the secret of success. No matter how simple the practice is, if you persevere and you practice with attention, it will be effective. And this is very important for the practice of this particular month. Repetition. Repeating, repeating, repeating. Again, something very, very simple. Now, the repetition of something simple, a word, a phrase, a movement, is common to all the major world religions. It's been practiced for thousands of years, and it really is effective. There are numerous ways to do it, but if you're going to use the repetition of a word or a phrase, that is the most important first step, is to find a phrase that is meaningful for you, but again is very simple. It must be short, and it must be able to match the in and out breath of your body. So it has to be equal, to divide in equal lengths. You choose something like, I love you, I need you. I love you, I need you. Simple, balanced, meaningful. No extra words saying, I love you, I need you badly. That isn't balanced, no? Because this is a rhythm. The repetition must be rhythmic. So it goes with the rhythm of your breathing, the rhythm of your walking, your rhythm of your being. This, out, in, out. I love you, I need you. I love you, I need you. Whatever. The finding of a simple phrase that is balanced, that is meaningful for you, is the first very important step. And it's absolutely individual and personal. You have to find it for yourself. In the many traditions, they make suggestions as to what that phrase should be. But it has to be yours. So that's the first thing, you try it. Quite often, to have something in your hands helps. So things like malas, beads like this. This is out of the Hindu tradition. It has 108 beads. You go straight, all the beads are the same size. You go straight from the beginning right down to the knot at the end. If you're carrying on, you go back down here. You have it, you pass it through your fingers, just passing it through your thumb and first finger, while you repeat the phrase with attention, with attention. You know, if you travel by public transport, you travel on the Straßenbahn or the tube or the underground or the BART, whichever country you're in, you'll be surprised to find how many people have got something like this in their hands on their knees, or even got their hands in their pockets. And if you watch carefully, you'll just see the slight movement that tells you they're passing something through their fingers. You don't have to wear it round your wrists and make a show of it. You can make the little beads yourself. They can be bigger beads, there can be fewer of them, but something that passes through your hands easily. Something else that most of you can do, if you wear a ring on your finger and it is loose enough, This is also extremely simple and a very, very ancient tradition. You sit and you just slowly move it round your finger as you repeat the phrase that is meaningful for you. In fact, I think in Italy they had special rings made where the phrase you were remembering or repeating was actually written into the ring, but that's not important. It can be any ring on your finger. There are many other ways of doing this, writing it, singing it, and so on, but these two are the basic, and they are most important. It is so effective that you have to be really very careful what you choose to repeat. It establishes that attitude in your consciousness. So if you have chosen something that is positive and helpful, that is what you're establishing in your consciousness. I give you one story, it's a true story. A woman who once approached me, and I had known her for a little while, she'd got married, and to her surprise she was finding her mother-in-law a terrible nuisance. And without being able to stop it, she was building up in herself a very negative attitude to her mother-in-law. She started to try a phrase like the one I suggested, I love you, I need you, which wasn't the phrase. It was more like something like, she's good, she does good, you know. And she went on with that. It wasn't easy, but she got a few suggestions to carry on trying, and she did. It was well over a year later when she came to me and she laughed one day and said, you know, I'm still repeating that. And I know she's a wonderful person. We have a marvellous time together. Climate change. Changing a negative climate of opinion and reaction into a positive one. And we all need to do this in our world today. We can support the politicians in their efforts to respect the climate and the climatic changes on our planet Earth that are brought about through our selfishness, our carelessness, our dangerous use of natural resources. But this, each one of us, the positive climate change of attitudes to each other is the responsibility of all of us. So good luck with your reflections of the month and enjoy the practice.